Hi, I'm Eamon, and today we're going to walk through how you can easily connect Lob and Braze. So we're actually going to start in Braze for this one. So if you're familiar with Braze, you're probably pretty comfortable with the idea of setting up a campaign or a canvas that sets a user on a journey that ultimately results when they reach a certain step in them receiving either an automated email or an automated SMS or some other type of message. Well, with Lob, you can now bring direct mail into your Braze canvases in the exact same way. So in this example, this campaign, it's going to trigger at 1:50 p.m., which is about 1 minute from now. Every user in this campaign is going to enter this flow, and when they reach this step, this is going to trigger a direct mail piece to be sent to them. So in this case, there's only one user in this campaign, and it's me. But the way that this message gets triggered is via a webhook within Braze. So when you go to set up a webhook within Braze, you'll actually see that there is a pre-designed Lob webhook, so it's very plug and play. If you open that up, you can see what this webhook is doing is it's making a call to the Lob API, and it's passing in that recipient name and address from within Braze in order to pass Lob the address to generate a mail piece to be sent to that person. I'm actually going to open up a more representative example of what we're doing here. So this is what we're doing for this specific canvas. So it's going to not only pull the name and address of the user, it's going to tell Lob which specific template to use. So these are your HTML templates you've saved in Lob, so basically which creative to send the user. It's also using Braze liquid tags to pass in dynamic values into the creative itself and attaches metadata to this send. So in this case, it's going to be personalized with my first name because it's grabbing that first name from within Braze and passing that to Lob as a merge variable. You can also see that we're sending through a unique QR code URL, and that QR code URL is going to take me to lob.com, but when I scan the QR code, it's also going to pass Lob my user ID because we're passing that in as a merge field within that QR code URL as well. So it really lets you personalize every piece of your mail, lets you personalize that QR code, and even lets you pass in user level metadata on that mail piece, which you'll see will come in handy a little bit later here. So it's now 1:51, which means that the user should have, in this campaign, should have had this triggered. They should have moved to this step 1 here, which fires off that mail piece. So if I go into my Lob dashboard and refresh my postcards, I'll see this new postcard was created right at 1:50 p.m., so right when that campaign was triggered. And I can see that it's personalized, so it says, "Hey Eamon, plan your next adventure." So I'm going to go ahead and make this postcard a little bigger. So the next step here is going to be scanning this QR code, which will create an event that we can pass back into Braze. So I'll show you how that works now. I'm going to go ahead and scan this QR code. And first, you'll be able to see that this was personalized because it takes me through to lob.com. And then it's passing in a UTM parameter with that unique customer ID. So you can see here that it was indeed a individual unique QR code. Now, if I go back into Lob and I refresh this mail piece, you can see that Lob captured this as a tracking event, this postcard viewed. So this is where I just now scanned that QR code. So this event can be passed back into Braze via a webhook. So a Lob webhook can be triggered off of any of these mail piece events. So in this case, this is postcard viewed. That's the QR code scan. But you can also trigger messages to be sent from Lob back into Braze when a mail piece is delivered, for example, or when a mail piece is mailed, or when it's in a user's local area. These are all events that Lob are capturing. They can be passed back into Braze. And the way that we do that is we set up what's called a data transformation within Braze. So this is an example of Braze data transformations. When you go to create it, and I'm not going to create one live here because that will expose an API key. But when I create this data transformation, it's going to give me a destination URL that I can use in my Lob webhook. And what that means is that Braze is now going to be listening for messages that get passed to that URL. And as an example of what that can look like within Braze, so here's kind of how one of these data transformations can get set up. It's going to be listening for values from that Lob webhook, especially that customer ID. And it's going to use that customer ID to map this back to the corresponding user within Braze. So in this case, when it hears that customer ID, it's going to create an event called Postcard QR code scanned. That's now something I can leverage in my Braze canvas. So if I come down here to my canvas, I have a listener set up that right in this time window is just 1 day, but this can of course be anything you want. But it's saying if within 1 day a user scans this QR code, then it's going to fire off this webhook. Now this is another Lob postcard webhook, and it's going to send a follow-up postcard. So it's going to have a slightly different message than the first one. But basically what's happening here is I scan that QR code. Lob sends a message to Braze saying that QR code was scanned via that data transformation. When that event gets captured in Braze, it's going to trigger a follow-up mail piece. Now, you all saw me actually scan that QR code already. So if I go back to my postcards, there's now a second new postcard up here. And if I open this up, you can see it's got the follow-up message. It recognizes that I'm engaged. I scan the QR code. So now it says, hey, Eamon, we're excited too. So now you've seen a full end-to-end flow from Braze to Lob, where first and foremost, a user enters a Braze journey and reaches a specific step that triggers a mail piece to be sent to them. We now set up listeners for those tracking events within Lob. So if that mail piece is delivered, that QR code scanned, whatever it may be, those can get passed back into Braze to update those user attributes within Braze or trigger a subsequent event, which is what we're doing here, which is sending that follow-up postcard. So as you can see, that's all very easy to connect. It's very plug and play. And if you want some help setting this up in your Braze instance, talk to your Lob representative. Thank you.